Welcome. This is Jason Clemmons, Doctor of Chiropractic at the Rock Health and Wellness Center, and this is Life with Jason Clemmons, DC. I hope everyone is having a great evening. I think we're all lined up, good to go. And man, what a busy day it's been at the Rock Health and Wellness Center. I'm telling you, I've had all my minutes accounted for since about 5:50 this morning, about 5:45 or 5:50. I have been studying. First, we taught one of our fitness classes this morning, and then I started a seminar with our neurofeedback. I've got a 61-hour course I got to take. I don't have to take. I chose to take on neurofeedback and brain mapping that we're doing here in the office. And so I worked until lunch, and then I adjusted patients at lunch, and then I worked until 4:30, and then adjusted patients from 4:30 to 5:45, and now I'm here with you. So, man. And I'm glad to be here with you. I'm excited about the show tonight. I got some stuff that I think is going to be fun to talk about, but I just thought I'd take just a minute to welcome everybody. All you guys on 98.7 Walk by Faith Radio, I'm glad you're with us tonight. 1420 AM Lubbock Christian Nation. All you guys streaming on 987radio.com. Appreciate you guys. And on the Live 365 app, if you got that on your phone somewhere. So all you guys out there in the world that are listening to us, thanks. Appreciate it. I hope we're making your world a better place. And all of our social media people, YouTube, Facebook, and X. I got our little ticker running across the screen today if you're looking for us on X, just in case those other platforms get fussy and don't like us talking too much about health. Just remember that we are live on X, and they let us talk about what we want to talk about. So I think that's good news. But yeah, I want to get to it tonight. I want to get into some of the things, just a couple of thoughts that I don't want to get too deep into the neurofeedback stuff that I studied all day long, but I do want to just kind of share. I just thought, man, that'd be kind of cool to talk about, and it was said differently. And like one of the things that was said today was, what's the major function of your frontal lobe? And the frontal lobe is the part of your brain up here right above your eyes. And the professor said, the teacher today said, to say no. And I thought, that's okay. That's interesting. Its job is to say no to things. And he said, basically what he got around to is to inhibit. And I said, there you go. I was wondering what he was going, what he's saying with that say no thing. But yeah, if you don't, if your frontal lobe is idling, is not functioning properly, then you're not able to say no. It's a great. I'm not going to be able to explain it properly to you tonight, but you know how we're always talking about if you increase frontal lobe activity, you decrease your flexor muscles. We talked about that before. Everybody make a fist and bend your wrist really tight, right? So like you're trying to show off your forearms, right? Okay, that tightness in that forearm right there, if that's what your wrist is doing naturally, if your wrist is just bending and you're naturally got your wrist in, like sometimes you see older people and then all of a sudden their arms can't straighten out. So if you're having a hard time getting your arm extended and your wrist extended, and you're just resting that way, you're just sitting there, but your wrists are turned in, that's coming from your brain. That's coming from your frontal lobe, and it's not inhibiting. Your frontal lobe is not inhibiting, turning things off. It's not turning things off. And so what's super cool about this technology that we have is we actually can measure the brain waves in your frontal lobe. I think it's great. I was like, man, we've got a cap we put on you. It's got 19 leads. And I've talked about neurofeedback before, but it's got 19 leads. And we actually measure what's going on with your brain activity. And then we can set some treatments for you to try to change the way that your brain is actually functioning. So I'm super excited about it. And I'm learning more about it all the time. And I learned a bunch about it today. And that was one of the things that you want higher frequency waves in your frontal lobe. And we can measure that. We can actually measure and say, hey, look, do you have higher frequency waves in your frontal lobe, or do you have lower frequency waves in your frontal lobe? And if you have lower frequency, that means that it's not turning on, and therefore it's not inhibiting, and it's not telling you to say no. Anyway, I know you guys aren't as excited about as excited about it as I am, but I'm pretty excited about it. I'm like, hey, that's pretty cool. We can't really help anatomical damage. We're talking about tinnitus, ringing in the ears, and ringing in the ears actually being a certain part of the brain that you can actually measure and see whether or not there's proper function or there's not proper function. And if the damage is done because of anatomical damage, let's say you worked at like around jet airplanes and it was really loud, or you were a rock and roll guy and you had loud music all the time and you actually caused damage to the mechanism in your ear, then there's not as much as we could do with it if it's physically damaged. But if it's not physically damaged, there is some things that we might could do for tinnitus. We can do some things chiropractically that, now I don't treat tinnitus. I simply try to get your body to function properly. But one of the things that they mentioned today was just concentrating on it. If you're concentrating on the ringing in your ears and you concentrate more, you'll increase what we call neuroplasticity. You will increase the firing pattern. The things that you do the most, you increase them the most. Kind of goes along with, you've heard people say muscle memory. I don't know that I really buy that statement. I don't think it's muscle memory. I think it's a neurological memory. I think it's neuroplasticity. And so it's the pathway that fires most often tends to fire again. That's basically kind of what neuroplasticity is all about. So if you're thinking about the tinnitus and you're concentrating on the tinnitus, when what you're doing is you're firing the pathway to think about tinnitus more. So if it's possible for you to, if you can try to distract yourself and not think about it as much, from a neurological standpoint, you give yourself a better chance to get over it. So that was just one thing. That was one thing that we talked about today. There's 30 billion neurons in your brain, pyramidal cells, what we were talking about. 30 billion of these neurons in your brain, and each one of those can make up to 30,000 connections. And you have to do the math on that, whatever 30 billion times 30,000 is. That is unbelievable how much stuff is going on inside your head. There's a lot of stuff going on inside your head. There's actually more synapses than there are stars in the entire sky. So you got a universe. You have a universe inside your head. Think about that for a second. I thought it was pretty cool. That's what was one of the statements that they said today, that you actually have a universe inside your head. That's we've done a lot of, everybody's starting to understand AI, artificial intelligence, right? And we were actually looking at some microscopic pictures of the brain and the layering patterns of the brain, and how those actually work. And we watched a video today of the dendrites and remodeling themselves and moving through the brain, and actually how the white matter and the gray matter are working together. And it was fascinating to watch it. But the layering, it's like you got half an inch of tissue, and that half an inch of tissue has, I don't know, millions of layers, like thousands of layers. I know there's a lot of difference between those two, but lots and lots of different layers. And that's actually how they started building artificial intelligence. So I thought that was interesting. One of the statements, clients on benzodiazepines have increased beta everywhere throughout their brain, which is a fast brain wave everywhere throughout their brain. I thought that was very, very interesting. How we don't think about that. We don't think about whenever someone puts you on some sort of medication, they don't necessarily think about what it does to you. So I thought that was cool. Anyway, I don't want to go through all these. I just thought I'd grab my notes and go over some of the highlighted parts of them because it was pretty cool, really. It's pretty cool stuff, and they did a good job teaching it. Can't wait until tomorrow. We start tomorrow at 7:30 a.m. and go till 5:30 tomorrow night. And so as soon as we finish up, we'll start us another show tomorrow night at 6. So I can't wait. Maybe we'll have some more new stuff tomorrow and that I can share with you about what we're doing. And then by the time we get all this done, then you guys are going to want to come get your brains mapped and see what's going on from a brain standpoint. So that's what I have on neurofeedback and brain mapping. Cool stuff. Really was cool stuff. I mentioned it early this week. I looked at Dr. Hyman's page on Instagram. You guys can go see him. Dr. Mark Hyman, I've mentioned it before. Right here, 41% of Americans have inadequate levels of vitamin D. Too many Americans are not getting enough vitamin D. The nutritional impact impacts everything. The nutrition impacts everything. Beyond nutritional balance, it supports bone health, immunity, thyroid function, hormones, muscle function, and helps regulate mood. Yeah, so he's got a bunch of slides right here. Low levels of vitamin D can lead to fatigue, muscle pain, muscle weakness, bone pain, erectile dysfunction, depression, cancer, and heart disease. So, man, want to make sure we got our vitamin D. Causes of low vitamin D. This is all coming off to Dr. Mark Hyman's Instagram page, by the way. Not enough vitamin D from your diet, not enough vitamin D from sun exposure, not properly absorbing vitamin D, obesity, certain medications, cystic fibrosis, Crohn's disease, celiac disease, kidney disease, and liver disease. All of those things right there can contribute to low vitamin D. What are some natural sources of vitamin D? Salmon, sardines, beef liver, mushrooms, egg yolks, and cod liver oil. Yeah, I don't necessarily agree with that cod liver oil unless you're getting it straight from the cod. But anyway, the importance of vitamin D testing with even with supplements, vitamin D-rich foods, the sun exposure your body may not absorb enough. Testing reveals if you're meeting your body's needs. Yeah, I totally agree with that. We do that here in the office. We have vitamin D test. So if you guys are interested in that, it's that time of year. I looked at the weather forecast this morning, and it looks like we got 80s all week next week. Looks like we're cooling off. It's kind of, I know it's trying to trick me and probably, got a feeling maybe we'll be hot again, but we're at that time of year where we're going to start to lose that sunshine. And if you're not taking your vitamin D, I strongly recommend it. And if you need to talk to your medical doctor about it, if you got something going on, I strongly recommend that too. If you want to know what your test numbers are, let us know. We could get you a kit. All you guys that are new to us in Littlefield, if you want to know what your numbers are, let us know. We could get you a test kit. It's easy. It's a finger prick. You just drop a drop of blood on a little piece of paper and let it dry and send it in, and they'll give us the results. Piece of cake. So if you're interested in that, we can get the omega-6/3 ratio done at the exact same time, and we could go from there. So this is the time of year. It's the time of year to make sure that you fight your way through the winter. We want to make sure. Cod liver oil, the way they discovered that is the Norwegians, the ones that ate the cod livers. And if you've ever seen a cod liver, it is a big organ. You can just look it up. It's a big organ. You look at a salmon liver versus a cod liver, they're extremely different. That cod liver, that's where the cod is really white meat, and it keeps a lot of that oil in the liver. The salmon is more of a pink meat, and you get a bunch of more of that oil in the meat. So if you want to get what they found out is those people back in the day, when in the wintertime, when they weren't getting any sunshine because it was cold and they were covered up. They had long sleeve coats on because it's dadgum cold. The ones that drank the cod liver oil through the winter are the ones that um, stayed more healthy. They were healthier. So they just discovered, hey, it's really good for you. Well, they were eating it straight from the fish. They weren't processing the oil, right? And so I think with the processing of the oil, I think there's a destruction of the vitamin D, and they're going to put synthetic vitamin D back in there anyway, which is what they get from sheep's wool. That's what your vitamin D is. Don't freak out about it. It's the same oil that's on your skin. They're getting it from sheep's wool, and that's how you take it. And if you'll take it, keep your vitamin D levels up, all of those things will function better, and you'll have a healthier wintertime. And so, yeah, it's always vitally important. And you guys know that. We talk about that a lot on the show. So let's get into, I want to take the article that we had last night. First of all, we'll say one more thing. If you got any questions, comments, JT, one of our all-time listeners and awesome platinum member of the Rock Health and Wellness Center, was just in here. He was talking about some food in Italy and the difference between eating pasta. He goes like, Doc, you said last night on the show that spaghetti turns into that sugar. It's a refined carbohydrate. And I was like, yeah, it is. And he was like, well, and I just had a friend that moved to Italy, and I was like, yeah, well, there's a difference. There's some difference in the way that the food is made. There's some difference in the food that's being made over there. The grain is different, and it's more of a whole type of food than what we get here. So if you go through the grocery store and you just buy yourself some spaghetti and you take it home, then you're just eating refined carbohydrate, which is going to make your insulin go up because it's going to make your blood sugar go up really fast, right? Pasta. That was what we talked about yesterday, was the pasta. And he said tonight, he's like, I didn't realize that the pasta, he said, I don't eat it anyway, but he said, I didn't realize that pasta turned to sugar so fast. And I was like, yep, it's one of those things that does that. And, in a family, one of the things about spaghetti is that it's easy to prepare and it's super cheap. So if you're a family of 4 or 5 people, you can make some spaghetti for supper and it's really cheap, right? But cheap is not always the best. Think about that. Do you buy the cheapest car? Do you buy the cheapest shoes? Do you buy the cheapest clothes? Do you like the cheapest furniture? How about the cheapest gun? How about the cheapest golf clubs? Are you going to buy the cheapest ring? Well, it's like if you were going to buy something and you were going after something that you valued, if you value playing golf, if you're a golfer and you value playing golf, are you going to buy the cheapest set of golf clubs that you can buy? Probably not, right? You wouldn't have any problem with it. If you're a traveler, if you love to travel, are you going to take the cheapest travel package that you can get? You're going to go stay in the cheapest hotel and go at the cheapest restaurants? I mean, are you going to go stay at the Motel 6 and eat at McDonald's if you're going to Paris? No, I don't even know if they have a Motel 6 in Paris, but you know what I'm saying? It doesn't even make any sense, right? The things that we value, that's where we spend our time, energy, talent, and money, and all that sort of thing. And so what I'm trying to share with you is it makes perfect sense to value your food and value your supplements. And just because spaghetti is cheap, don't let them trick you into killing yourself over it. Don't let them just say, hey, man, we'll just eat some cheap spaghetti and we'll drink some cheap sodas and we'll have some cheap chocolate for dessert. And then you'll be on your way to a cheap casket that way too early. So you don't want that, right? So we started talking about that yesterday. And we talked about this article, and I wanted to talk about it some more, actually, because I love this slide, and it was really quick at the end of the show last night. And for all you guys on the radio, you can catch us on the Walk by Faith Facebook page, and you can watch. You can come back and when you get a chance, you can see these slides that we're putting up. But this, this little pathway, right here is one of the pathways that changed my life, really. Like just, I thought I was going to be a football coach. So when I went through my undergraduate, which was 5 years of college, I tried to skip as much science as I could skip. And I was like, there was no sense in taking a hard science class when I didn't have to take a hard science class. And I I wasn't a slacker. I guess you can't say those two sentences back to back, and one of them's got to, maybe one of them might be not true. Maybe I was a slacker. Maybe I was trying to get out of the hard classes. I didn't think there was any sense, if I was going to be a history teacher, that I needed to be taking biochemistry, especially organic chemistry and all that stuff, right? I didn't learn until afterwards that I was going to be a doctor. And then I had to go back to school and take 30 hours of science so that I could go to chiropractic school. So you miss out on some things. And I really think chemistry, I really do wish I would have learned more chemistry when I was growing up. I mean, I had a fourth grader in here today, came and got adjusted, and his ankle was hurting, or foot was hurting. And I said, "Did you go to school today?" And he said, "Yes." And I said, "Did you learn anything?" And he said, "No." And I said, "What the heck did you go up there for? You should have just stayed with your mom today. Wasn't any sense in you going to school if you're not going to learn something." And he just looked at me like, "You was so weird." I was like, "What's your teacher's name? I'm going to call up there. Lubbock Cooper something West Elementary School or whatever." Like, hey, I want to find out what they're teaching up there, because I got a suspicion. I got a suspicion that they actually did teach something today, and maybe he just didn't want to talk to me about it, because he was talking to his mom about it as he was walking out. So sometimes I do get that from the kids. I don't understand why. No one really loves to talk about learning, but a few of them do. I wish I'd learned more chemistry when I was younger. And I wish I would have understood the chemistry when I was younger. Because, man, there's a lot to it. There's just a lot to... It's basically how the whole world works. Have you ever thought about that? Like how they put meals together in a cafeteria. I was thinking about that this morning. One of the worst places that you can eat is the school cafeteria, the hospital cafeteria, the school cafeteria, and church. Those are the three worst places that I know of that a person can eat. And I was thinking about how they put food together. And if you ever thought about that, like, how do you make a meal? What is it? What is it that they always put together to make a meal? How come you always got corn involved in a meal? What is the deal with that? Like, people like corn on the cob and corn in a can. And I've got friends that think corn is a vegetable. It's like, no, it's not. It's a grain. It's a grain. I don't really know exactly sure what we should use it for, but because we shouldn't be feeding our cows corn. That makes them omega-6 heavy meats. So anyway, I'm not going to get off on that, but it's just about chemistry. How do you know what kind of wine that you should use with red meat or whatever, right? None. The answer to that question is none. You shouldn't be drinking any wine with red meat. You should be you should be eating grass-fed red meat, wild grass-fed red meat. All the meat is wild. But don't feed it any grains. I promise y'all, I've had a great day. I have not been drinking anything except that iced tea all day long, but I'm having a good time. I hope y'all are having a good time. What the heck? It's Thursday night. It's football season. We got a football game on here shortly. I think Patrick Mahomes is playing tonight, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm not going to get off track, but I do think that's true. I think he's playing the Ravens tonight. Maybe he started already. That might be what y'all are doing, is watching the game. But I don't know. I don't know where it's at. Can't find it. NFL tonight. Let's see what it is. I know you guys wanted to take a break from that statement. Anyway, yeah, Chiefs and Ravens at 7:20 in Lubbock. We'll have just enough time. We'll finish this show, and then we'll go home. We'll get some good supper, and we won't be drinking any wine, and we won't be eating any spaghetti. I can promise you those two things tonight. But let's get back on track. Y'all didn't get off track. I'm the one that got off track. We're talking about chemistry, right? It's the chemistry of life. And what I love about this particular arachidonic acid being carried by the COX enzymes and the LOX enzymes through to series 2 and series 4 prostaglandins and leukotrienes is that's how your inflammation gets elevated right there. You take your body makes arachidonic acid, but you can also increase those levels by eating high levels of omega-6 fatty acids. So when you eat corn chips or corn-fed animals or high fructose corn syrup or vegetable oils or those things that are high in omega-6 fatty acids, your body takes them and it uses these enzymes to make inflammation. Hey, we got to take a break. You guys stick around with us. We'll have as much fun in the second half of this show as we've had in the first half of this show. And you guys could just stick around with us, and we'll just take it on home to the kickoff of NFL football tonight. So we'll be right back right after these messages. Yeah, you ever wonder what an NSAID is? Non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug? You ever wonder how Celebrex works or any of those COX inhibitors? Inhibit means to stop something from happening. You stop it from happening, right? So inhibit bad behavior. That's what you're supposed to do, right? Well, look at this. Look how it goes. Look what happens right there when you take arachidonic acid with the presence of COX enzymes, and you end up with this series 2 prostaglandin. And that is an inflammatory problem. You're going to get inflammation. Your joints are going to hurt more. You're going to be more stiff. You're going to increase inflammation in your brain. You're going to increase inflammation in your organs. Your inflammation means heat. Inflammation is set your lighter. You got a lighter? Anybody got a lighter these days? You got a match? Just take your lighter and just put it right up underneath your phone and just light your phone. See what, don't do that really, but what would happen? You'd melt the back of your phone. Would you think your phone would work very well if you held heat to it? Sometimes you leave your phone in the car too long and it ends up giving that temperature warning on your phone. It quits working because it gets too hot. You guys do that this summer? I think I did it twice. Left my phone in the car in the summertime, and just being inside the car. How many kids died this summer because their parents left them in the car? Right? It's not good physiology to be heated up. It's not good physiology. You want that to be under control, and you want to have inflammation only when your innate intelligence needs inflammation, not just constant inflammation. So what do? You take a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug, and it blocks the COX enzymes. Those are COX inhibitors. And so you block it. You block those COX enzymes right there. Well, guess what the body does? The body says, man, I got all this arachidonic acid. I got to do something with it. I can't just do nothing. So it calls in the JV team, and it gets the LOX enzymes involved, and then you end up with leukotriene B4, which is a series 4 leukotriene, which is inflammatory. You got to do something with all that stuff. It'll drive inflammation one way or the other. So one way that you could decrease inflammation is just stay away from those that increase 6s. Hang on. Okay, everybody, we're back. This is Life with Jason Clemmons, DC, and we are talking about health. So we were showing you this. We were talking about arachidonic acid. We were talking about how you make inflammatory markers out of it. That's what we were talking about last night, was the eicosanoids. Okay? if you take your fish oil, you're increasing your EPAs, you're decreasing your eicosanoids. Okay, and then these guys talk about it. I don't. You guys are tired of me talking about the pro-inflammatory foods, including what do they say? Pro-inflammatory foods, including sugar, refined carbohydrates, omega-6 fats, and chemicals. Remember, last night we talked about the Zone Diet, zoneliving.com, Barry Sears talked about that. Go look at it. What is it all about? It's about insulin resistance. It's about stopping insulin resistance. And this is from this article here we talked about last night from the University of Valencia, Spain, German Institute of Human Nutrition, University of Potsdam, Germany. Yeah, this is not just American stuff. It's global because it's the same physiology if you're living in Spain as if you're living in Germany, as if you're living in West Texas or Oklahoma or New Mexico. It's the same exact physiology, right? And certain foods have pro-inflammatory activities and certain diets have anti-inflammatory activities. Anti-inflammatory foods include fiber, omega-3 fatty acids, magnesium, carotenoids, flavonoids, and more. Anti-inflammatory foods. You can choose to eat anti-inflammatory foods, right? Abdominal and visceral obesity has tripled in the United States population. We don't need to get into all that. I do want to talk about the 4 diets that the authors in this particular study recommended. And I can't even say that. Jiangnan diet, the Chinese traditional diet, Jiangnan, fruits and vegetables, fish. There you go. That's a short diet, right? The diet patterns and nutritional composition of the Chinese diet have changed considerably from the 80s, becoming increasingly more westernized. From the 80s? Wow. The consumption of refined grains, red meat, processed meat, and sugar-sweetened beverages has increased, and furthermore, frying is more used for cooking and the traditional boiling or steaming. Consequently, the prevalence of chronic, non-communicable diseases, including obesity, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and cancers, have increased. Now, you take a population of people and you start to feed them food that's incongruent with health, and guess what will happen? They will end up getting sick, right? So fruits and vegetables, and really berries. Berries are overlooked. Raspberries, blueberries, strawberries, blackberries, berries. They're overlooked. And you can go get sexy and get some acai berries or some goji berries or something like that. They're still berries. They have just less sugar in them. Have you guys noticed have you noticed how attractive the cantaloupe and the watermelon and the apples and the bananas are this time of year? Have you noticed that maybe you've gained 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, 10 pounds here in the last few weeks? You're just like, I don't even understand what's going on. I don't understand why it's any different. But all of a sudden, I've gained 5 pounds. Because this time of year, we're getting into those good, ripe watermelons and those good, ripe cantaloupe and those good, ripe apples. They just had an apple festival in Idalou last weekend, right? It's the time of year that all of this fruit is getting very ripe, which is attracting us in our eyes. Our eyeballs are looking at that, and our brains are like, yes, go get it. Go get you some of that fruit. And then what's happening is you're increasing your sugar and you're adding a few pounds. If you wanted to combat that a little bit, you could calm down on that sugar from the fruit. Now, I get this. I hear this argument. I don't get it very often, but I hear this argument out there in the world about, are you telling me that people get sick from eating too much fruit? I never seen anybody get sick from eating too much fruit. Yes, I'm telling you that that's one of those sentences. That's one of those sentences that people say just to say it, to try to make some sort of point that holds up zero. It doesn't hold up. Am I saying that fruit's bad for you? No, I'm not saying fruit's bad for you. I'm saying that there's a lot of fiber in fruit. There's a lot of nutrition in fruit. There's lots of those carotenoids and flavonoids and all those things in fruits. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that too much sugar is too much. No matter where you get it from, too much sugar is bad for you. So if you wanted to control your sugar a little bit, you could just go with the berries and ease up on the fruit, right? The Mediterranean diet is another one. You guys have heard of that before. Olive oil, fruits and vegetables, fish and seafood. Yeah, you're going to find out that fish is involved in all these diets when people want to be healthy, right? The Mediterranean diet was passed on through generations before the globalization of the food system. The MD is described, the Mediterranean diet, is described in civilizations that surround the Mediterranean Sea because they share common foods and cooking methods. Olive oil is especially emphasized due to its ability to reduce radical oxidative species, ROS, free radicals, and prevention of inflammation-related diseases due to its phenolenic compounds. Now, one thing you need to understand about olive oil, it just takes a higher temperature in order to make that oil bad. Like vegetable oil, corn oil, that type of stuff, it goes bad at a very low temperature. So if you're going to cook with it, you're going to have to heat up your frying pan, and you're going to put some of that oil in there. It's going to make that go bad quicker. The thing about olive oil is that the temperature it takes to make that oil go bad is higher. So if you are eating foods that you feel like you need to cook, like if you were going to saute up some zucchini or squash or something like that, or you're going to bake some okra, which I know that a lot of people around here never heard of that before, but you can actually eat you can actually eat okra that is not deep fried in breading. Who knew? I know. It's crazy, but it's a fact. You can take some okra and cut it up into little chunks, put it on a cookie sheet, and just drizzle a little olive oil over the top of it, or you can mix it all up in a bowl with a little olive oil and then just lay it out on a cookie sheet and then sprinkle a little garlic salt on top of it and stick it and bake it. Stick it in the oven and bake it. It'll turn crisp and it's delicious. And it's healthy as heck. Okra is really good for you. Um, it's that whole, every time, like Pepsid, you've heard of all that stuff, okra pepsin, that pepsin in the okra, it's good for your digestive tract. So that's the way you use olive oil. You just use it at a lower temperature. If you're going to saute up some zucchini and squash, and you just put a little olive oil in there, put a little butter in there, however you're going to do it, you just keep it at a lower temperature, and that way you don't ruin the oil. But if you get that oil up to a high enough temperature, then olive oil will turn bad just as easy as corn oil or vegetable or whatever, right? Okay. The protective role shown by the Mediterranean diet is due to its antioxidant and anti-inflammatory components. Yeah, fruits and vegetables, green leafy vegetables, fruits, fish, and seafood. The Nordic diet, fruits and vegetables and fish. Wait a minute. Let's go back up. Jiangnan diet. The Chinese traditional diet is fruits and vegetables and fish. And then you come down here to the Nordic diet, and it's fruits and vegetables and fish. Wow, like crazy. And then you got the Washoku diet, the Japanese traditional diet. And guess what it is? You guessed it. Fruits and vegetables and fish. The traditional Japanese diet is characterized by high consumption of many types of fish rich in EPA and DHA. You got it. Japan is known for its exceptional healthy diet and extended longevity. Steaming, boiling, and stewing are the main cooking methods in this diet. Despite the benefits of the traditional Japanese diet, over the past decades, the Japanese diet has become westernized and consequently disease rates have risen. Of course. Come on, y'all. Like it's 2024, right? We're at the point in human history, in human existence. We're at the point in human existence that we've got this part figured out by now, right? We at least know The food that we're supposed to eat and the food that we're not supposed to eat. Now, maybe some of you old timers that are watching the show or listening to the show, maybe you got caught up, all you 80-year-olds, 81, 79, 80, 81-year-olds that are out there, you guys are the generation that got lied to. So you got some relearning to do. But the old folks already knew that you weren't supposed to eat that stuff. And then all of us in the 50-year-old generation, we're like, what is happening? I really don't know. I don't even know if I could look it up. So let me just see. Yeah, right there. Fred Madison Clemmons, birthday August 28th, 1914, and he died August the 20th, 2000. So he was 8 days away from being 86 years old, if that's right. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. That's my grandpa. My grandpa lived to, he died August the 20th of 2000 at the age of 85. My grandpa had 4 boys. So he died in 2000. So, and he was just about to be 86. So 24 years later in August, he would have been, 110, right? So he would have been the 110-year-old alive today that knew better than that, right? That eat all that crap. But he was 85 years old. He had 3 sons. He has 4 sons. The oldest one died first. It was kind of crazy. They all died in order. But the oldest one died first, and he was in his 70s, 73, I think. The next one died, he was 80, and then my dad died, and he was 80. And his little brother is the one that might actually, I got a feeling he's going to beat them all. And I got a feeling he's going to beat them all. And one of the things that he's done is he's run marathons as long as I've been alive. He's been a runner, a jogger, and a runner. They're one of those people that on Thanksgiving, they go turkey trot and stuff, right? Like he's run a marathon on the Great Wall of China. He's climbed Kilimanjaro one day and ran a marathon the next day or something. Like he's done all kinds of crazy stuff like that. He's a fitness guy. He lifts weights all the time. He's the one that has a chance. If we can get him to clean up his diet just a little bit, he's the one that has a chance to get past my grandpa. But what in the heck? How did that happen? How did my grandpa make it to 80, almost 86, 8 days shy of being 86 years old? And he's got 4 boys, and they ain't even close. You know what happened? Those 4 boys, they came along and they hit their 20s in the 70s. My dad was born in 43, so he turned 30 in 73. So he hit his right about the time 1973 he's turning 30. Here comes high fructose corn syrup. Here comes Coca-Cola. Here comes in a big gulp. Here comes the processed food industry. And you know what it does to you? It makes you die young. It makes you die earlier than the generation that was before you. When has that happened in the history of mankind? Is that something that happens every generation? My whole life, life expectancy increased every year. It's like every year. And then they used to tell us, man, you guys take care of yourself because there's a good chance you're going to be 100. Right? Yeah. When you take a group of people like my grandpa, who lived in the Depression, didn't have any money, didn't have any, like pigeon and squirrels and stuff like that. Why? Because they were daggum hungry. That's why they ate all that stuff, right? They ate whatever they had to eat and whatever they could grow in a garden, and they didn't eat much, and they were thin people. And my grandpa was a hard-working, thin man his whole life. And he didn't start really getting sick until he retired. And then he retired and ended up sitting down watching CNN or Fox News or whatever it was back in the day, and then bam, then that got him. But it got him at almost 86. Right? That's what happens. You take a group of people, you start feeding them processed crap, and then they all start dying earlier than they should. And it sucks. I'm telling you, it sucks. The Western diet, an example of pro-inflammatory dietary patterns, refined grains and sugars. Refined sugars. There's not a spaghetti field. Remember last night we said there's not a taco shell field? Well, there's not a spaghetti field either. You can't just go out there in this field and pick some spaghetti. You can't do that. You got to refine it. You got to take whatever it is and take it to a factory and make it into some sort of food product and stick it in a box. And then you can sell it really cheap. Refined grains and sugars. Red and processed meat, I'm telling you, I don't think that's true. I don't think red meat is the problem. If that red meat is eating grass, I don't think it's a problem. You guys deer hunters, any of you guys deer hunters, you guys out there feeding those deer corn, you don't understand chemistry. You don't understand inflammation. You don't understand. Don't eat that. You're going to eat that deer and act like you're some sort of naturalist. You're doing something. You're going to make an argument for your deer rifle. You're going to make an argument for being a country boy. You're going to make an argument for helping out the ecosystem, and you're going to make yourself sick by eating deer corn fed deer, right? I don't think that's how you do it. I don't think you get sick from eating red meat, grass fed meat. I don't think so. I think the buffalo were grass fed, and I don't hear a lot of stories about the Indians before the white man came along. I don't hear about the Indians other than the alcohol being all that sick. And all the pictures I used to see of Indians, they seem to be rather thin folks from way back in the day. And they were eating grass-fed red meat, right? Okay, high dairy products, high-fat dairy products. It's not so much about the fat. Don't care about that. High salt consumption, sometimes. Artificial, yeah, it's probably a problem. I mean, the amount of salt we have is probably a problem. I think I would agree with that. Artificial sweetened drinks. I'm not saying salt's bad for you. I'm saying volume of salt could be bad for you. And way too much of it over long periods of time. I think there's some legitimate argument with that. I know that all of a sudden it's popular that that's not true, but I'm not sure I'm not 100% sure that I agree with that. I hear people say it, but just because they say it doesn't mean that it's true. Just because I say it doesn't mean that it's true. Artificial sweetened drinks. Since the Industrial Revolution 150 years ago, the population of industrialized countries has gained unlimited access to high caloric diet. This results in excess food consumption, a sedentary lifestyle, which ultimately leads to obesity and the development of non-communicable diseases and metabolic syndrome. We all know that, right? We all know that. We all know about this. We may not know what nuclear factor kappa B is, NF kappa B, the main transcription factor involved in inflammatory process, omega-6 fatty acids, inflammatory process, arachidonic acids, all that stuff, right? But let's just take a segment and move over a little and for a second, and let's take a look at mechanisms of psychiatric illness. Mechanisms of psychiatric illness, because you think to yourself, well, wait, like, okay, what is he talking about? He's talking about something. He's talking really fast, and I don't even understand what he's talking about. And like, what? Yeah, okay. Now let's talk about inflammation, because we just talked about inflammation from a food source standpoint, right? We just talked about like having too much inflammation in your body. But now let's talk about that from a standpoint of depression and how depression fans the flames and feasts on the heat, right? Inflammation, the mechanisms of psychiatric illness. This comes from a bunch of people at the Institute of Behavioral Medicine Research and the Department of Psychiatry and Behavioral Health at Ohio State University College of Medicine, American Journal of Psychiatry. These psychiatrists, remember last night or the night before when we talked about this spontaneous healing, that these people are now making a statement. They're like, we're starting to see this spontaneous healing taking place, right? Well, what about mental health? What about mental health? Depression and inflammation fuel one another. Depression and inflammation are intertwined, fueling and feeding off of each other. The depression-inflammation relationship begins early in life. This is why children should also have an anti-inflammatory diet and supplements. You know, when we were looking at those pictures this morning of how the brain actually makes itself, and we were looking at all of those microscopic pictures and all the things that they've done to animate that and make it all cool and everything. And if I could figure out how to play it, maybe I can find that video and see if I can play it. But they're talking about the importance of children getting proper fats. And the guy teaching the course talked about French fries and how French fries and the oil in French fries and the acid that comes along with the oil in French fries is bad for the development of the brain. Yeah, think about that. What you want to have is this right here. This is why children should also have an anti-inflammatory diet and supplements. They should have an anti-inflammatory diet. What is an anti-inflammatory diet? A high refined carbohydrate, high omega-6 diet. That's what we just talked about, right? So we're setting our kids up. What do we have? Another shooter yesterday in Georgia? We have another kid, 14 years old, I think, killed 4 people. I didn't read all of it, but I'm pretty sure that's what happened. He's 14 years old. What are we going to say? He was a bad kid? Are you kidding me? He's 14 years old. Like, why was he a bad kid? Did he have brain function? Did he have the proper nutrition? Did he have the proper fats? Did he have the proper movement with his feet? I'm going to say no. I'm going to say no on all those things. I'm going to say that his right hemisphere is not working properly. I'm going to say that he has no empathy for other people, right? We don't want that for our kids. We don't want that for ourselves. If you're dealing with your depression, if you're dealing with depression, get on your feet and move. I knew a person one time that lost a loved one and drank a bottle of wine every night for 3 years. And the way they got out of it, they told me it was a God thing. I don't know how many years ago this was. It was a while back. But they told me it was a God thing that got them out of it. And I agree with that. But what did God use to get them out of it? You know what they just happened to do? They just happened to walk a lot. They just happened to walk a lot. I mean, like a lot. Like 12 miles a lot. Like a lot of walking. Like walk and walk and walk and walk and walk. And then it just happened to coincide with the amount of walking they were doing and their ability to break free of the alcohol that they had been drinking a bottle of wine a night for 3 years. I thought that was super interesting how depression is brought on when our expectations, remember Monday night show? When our expectations don't meet our reality, when our reality doesn't meet our expectations, lose a loved one and find out what that feels like. Yes, when all of a sudden what you're living in your reality is not what you're expecting, it's going to create depression. And if it creates depression, how are you going to get out of it? One of my patients came in today and they told me, you know, you're always talking about physical, chemical, and mental emotional stress. Well, this day has given me physical stress. She said, 2 out of 3. I got 2 out of 3, and I got a feeling those 2 are going to make me have that third one. She said that physical stress and that mental emotional stress is going to make me make a bad decision with my supper tonight and cause me for some chemical stress. right? Well, this article right here, which we're definitely going to have to carry over because we only got about a minute left. But inflammation plays a key role in depression's pathogenesis. There's a bidirectional link between depression, inflammation, and disease. Stress and infection can lead to exaggerated or prolonged inflammatory responses, increasing the incidence and depth of depression. Think about that. If you have infection, you're going to have an increased amount of inflammation because inflammation is the beginning stages of the stress response, which is also the beginning stages of the immune response, which your inflammation is going to go up, which is going to make you more likely to be depressed. How do you get out of it? Increase your omega-3s, go for a walk. It's good stuff. Hey, we'll carry it on. You guys have a great night. Hey, go watch Patrick Mahomes whip up on the Ravens tonight. And you guys have a great night. I hope you guys enjoyed that. We'll be back tomorrow night at 6 o'clock with Life with Jason Clemmons, DC, right here on all of our channels. You guys have a great night. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Ken, I'm going to answer this question. I see that right there. And in case you didn't put that on Facebook, is there a healthy alternative to spaghetti? There are some certain grains that if you get the right kind of spaghetti, and then everybody that's in my world always says spaghetti squash. So a lot of my people will use spaghetti squash as the noodles, or they'll even use zucchini as the noodles when they're making lasagna. So both of those things right there is are an alternative. I'll see if I can find the exact, because the grain that they use in Italy is a different grain. It's the same thing with the Japanese eat. There's some different grain that's more of a whole grain that doesn't have quite the starch content that raises the blood sugar. So we'll see if I can look that up. If I get a chance, I'll look that up here in the next night or two, and I'll get back with you on that. So thanks for the question, and thanks for the 7 o'clock start time of the game, Lewis. That's great. Maybe Leslie's got it on pause. All right. You guys have a great night. We'll talk to you.